Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the situation over at the Siversk and the northern part of the Bakhmut front. So for those that are not orientated, the Ukrainian controlled Siversk city is over here, and the Russian controlled Bakhmut is here. This is Bakhmut city, and so the situation over at this area is very interesting. This is what I'm going to call the Russian Gambit. The Ukrainians actually are making good progress over at Yakovlivka, just off this region over here. The Ukrainians actually made progress. They managed to attack towards Yakovlivka, and they are getting closer. They actually managed to break through some kind of the Russian lines that currently was around here. They managed to break through, and the Russians now have to struggle to defend Yakovlivka. And this is just north of Soledar. This is Soledar, the brow of Donetsk, and the Ukrainian forces breaking through here is part of this major pincer movement that I have been talking about, where the Ukrainians are trying to break in this way or even capture Soledar and actually put pressure while the Ukrainians launch another attack from this direction. And this coupled with some breakthrough. Previously we have information that the Russians actually did a counter attack and managed to have some control, maybe not so far out, maybe until here. The Ukrainians actually have launched the offensive, and they have reached the inside of Berkhivka. So they are now currently fighting inside Berkhivka over here, and the Russian forces is it looks very much like the Russians actually in the back foot, where the Russians are trying to protect the very strategically important village. Because if not, then the Ukrainian forces will be able to take this junction and have total strategic control over the entire region. So so you can even see that with the attack at Yakovlivka, if they are able to capture Yakovlivka over here, and with some success in Berkhivka, you can see there is also kind of a tiny pincer of sort, or at least they're attacking from both sides, so that the Russians will be to have to struggle between deciding where they want to defend. And while these are happening, where the Ukrainians are making progress, the Russians seems to ignore. Like, it's not like they're not defending, but instead they went on an offensive over at Spirne. And the interesting thing over here is that the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russians are fighting them on the western part of Spirne. This is Spirne, and they are fighting over here, which means that the Russians have captured Spirne. And in the latest information that I received, the Russian forces actually attacked in the pincer from the north of Spirne and the south of Spirne, and this actually forced the Ukrainians to withdraw from Spirne to avoid an encirclement, which then corroborates my assessment that the town is actually captured, based on the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's report. And don't you think this is interesting? The Ukrainians are actually making the progress of a push south towards Soledar, and then the Russians just like, okay, do whatever you want, and the Russians want to push towards Ivano-Darivka. And then the Ukrainians would then have to make a decision. Are they going to continue to push southward? Or are they going to be drawn backwards to kind of defend the situation over at Spirne? Because if you let the Russians continue to push, this is going to mess up the entire strategic situation for the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians need to hold the entire Siversk front, which is actually this entire region. This entire front here, this is the Siversk front, and they need to have this intact so that they can form a base or good foundation for them to push this southward push towards Berkhivka and capturing of Soledar. And without this, if the Russians actually push all the way in, then this entire push south of Yakovlivka would might become a trap, because then the Russians could potentially close up the gap and encircle the Ukrainian forces that was on the offensive. And so this is the Russian gambit. They are trying to just push through Spirne, make a massive offensive over the past 2 days, and force the Ukrainians to make a decision. Do they want to defend or do they want to go on the offensive? And on top, outside of this this Russian gambit, or the Soledar gambit or Siversk gambit, whatever you want to call this, I think I would call it a disputed gambit. Basically Spirne. They are gambling on Spirne and see if the Ukrainians would bite. Outside of this gambit, this battle of chicken between Ukraine and Russia, the Ukrainians continue to be attacking over at Berkhivka. Oops, I pressed the wrong button again. At Berkhivka, they are continuing to be attacking over there, and the Russians somehow is attacking over here. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, the Russians were attacking around Vasilivka and towards Berkhivka for some reason. Could this be accurate? Is this a Ukrainian offensive and not a Russian one? I'm not sure, because the Ukrainians' information can be very conflicted at times. I have no idea sometimes, because they do project their own offensive on the Russians. If this is true, if this is a Russian offensive, then this is gonna makes not many sense, because the Russians are holding this line over here, and they are now in danger of Ukrainian breaking all these communication lines, and this will cause the Russian forces over this region here to be unsupported and unsupplyable, because they need the roads in order to do the resupply. So, but somehow they are on the offensive instead of taking care of Berkhivka. I'm not too sure what is the situation over there. Is that another gambit? No, I do not know. Is there another game of chicken? So anyway, this is the situation over at the Siversk front and the northern part of the Bakhmut front. And subscribe, press like, and I'll see you in the next update.